wish there was like
You wish there was what? What now?
they need you remember how Discord used to have like not Discord, oh what was the other one that chat thing? I don't know.
TeamSpeak?
Um yeah, TeamSpeak used to have the little poke thing or whatever. I wish they had like a slap a bitch button so I could slap her.
Oh, that would be hilarious. I would be using the hell out of that to smack Rich all day.
Right? I would spam that shit.
But anyway, um, but of course, what was I gonna say?
I don't know, you just went live on
Yeah, I know I went live and my mind just went blank. It's like I had like an introduction in my brain and my mind just went blank. But
what is
anyway, anyway,
yeah.
as many of you guys know, it's been like a trend around TikTok and even I don't know if it's on Instagram too, but as far as I'm aware of, I know it's on TikTok because that's where I find it from. But anyway, I have seen a documentary called Quiet on Set: The Dark Side of Kids TV. I've already seen all 4 episodes last night. And Neek, I believe you also seen it as well, right? All four.
Yeah. Yes.
And I know Rick told me earlier that he also seen all 4 of them too. And we have so many comments and so many anger and emotions and everything else. So we're just gonna start this right off the bat. I'm not even gonna do an intro or nothing like that. But basically, what the documentary is everybody who's with either in the 90s or early 2000s would remember Nickelodeon and shows like all that. Victoria's iCarly, The Amanda Show, Drake and Josh, Sam and Cat, which is the most popular. I believe there's another one. What was the one that you mentioned earlier? Because I know I was speaking to you about it.
Oh, so many of them. Now you,
And
but
then I think
so
it's the one that does Good Burgers.
oh, Can and Kill.
Yes, there you go. But of course, what the documentary is pretty much talking about is basically a mixture of pretty much everything, and everything is not good behind the scenes, especially with us like millennials and maybe a little, maybe part of earlier Gen Zs. Maybe I said. So basically, I don't even know where to start. So, however, we did discover abuse taking place, which is horrific and tremendous. But the only thing I want to say is this. I was a kid watching all of this show and I wasn't expecting, all of this to happen, especially behind the stage. Because me being a kid, seeing like those little clips and scenes of it just, had me laughing. I didn't realize anything was going on until that documentary, which unfortunately ended up being said of what was told behind some of these scenes, which kind of shocked me. Did it shock you?
Uh, bleh. So I'm gonna be honest. Yes, and because um, I think looking back, like, oh hey Rex, welcome.
Hello.
We just started. But
We
anyways,
just
looking
started,
back,
so you're pretty much
I'm,
perfect timing.
I'm gonna I'm gonna tell you one thing. I'm just gonna be quick. I was on the go like Pony Express, like during the Western days, Pony Express. That's how fast I was moving today.
well, damn, don't kill yourself for us, Rex.
Well, I
But
made
no,
it. I
I
made
don't
it.
even know what the hell a pony express is, considering the pony doesn't even run that fast. But
Pony
okay,
Express is
okay,
the now
okay,
system at the post office, but I'll explain that to you later.
all right.
okay, back on track, back on track. So yes and no. So it shocked me a little bit to hear the extent, but it didn't shock me to find out that it was happening because looking back now as an adult, those and watching some of those scenes that were sexualized in the TV shows,
And a
those
lot of
should have
it
been.
you can, and a lot of it, it should be blamed
Just to
on
say
Dan
it quick,
Snyder.
Dan wasn't the only one.
But that it should have been a red flag for any parents watching it with their kids, or and this is the biggest one. It should have been red flags for the people on the other side of the cameras and the writers and the executives at Nickelodeon that were okaying these scripts. Those
I
are red
agree
flags
with
right
you.
there.
I agree. I
If
agree with you,
this
Lynette.
if this is the shit that is being put into your TV shows, okay, this is like sexual content in your kids' TV shows, then you know something's going on when the cameras are off. Somebody in that studio is doing something to somebody if this is the shit they're putting in the show. That's all I'm
You
No,
know,
now
can I
that you
make?
mentioned, go ahead
saying.
with your comments. I'm gonna say something else after that.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I'm gonna say something. People in those studios, there's about 300 people. Out of those 300 people, except for parents, should have stopped it. There were some parents that didn't stop it because they wanted money. And of course, we will get to talk about this guy, about his son. We'll get to that. But you know, the industry has overlooked, and it took so long to do that. But we'll get to that, why it takes so long.
Yeah, and as I said about earlier, uh, since Nick mentioned parents, was the fact that there was literally a parent who daughter was on the Amanda show. She was, I believe, 9 or 10 years old, and she was in contact back and forth emailing Jason Handy, which I'm pretty sure you know by now. Watching the documentary, the kind of effed up shit that he did. So she literally said, "Oh, I don't know," and I'm quoting this by the way. I don't know whatever to call the cops or just leave it alone. Just to put it in simple terms. Really? Like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, how? Why would you not call the cops?
She failed her daughter. That
She
that
did,
that
and that's the
she
thing that
admitted
pissed me
she
off.
failed it. She failed it. See, parents like that, some I can see she's afraid, but she should have had. I'm gonna use the male term. She should have got the balls to get up there and say, "Hey, no." Two things: either
Now,
call the police or pull her daughter out of the stage.
now I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say this, Karen. She did not fail her child because her child never acted after that. She got her child away from him, and her child no longer acted after that. She failed the other girls that it happened to by not calling the cops. She made sure her daughter was protected. Her daughter no longer had access to Jason, and her daughter was no longer on the set and quit acting altogether because of what happened. But by not calling the cops, she failed the other victim that it happened. That's who she
Okay.
failed, not her daughter, the other victim.
Yeah, because the other victim, if you recall correctly, he literally had little Ziploc bags of each of the girls' name. Her daughter was one of those names, and it's like, how screw up are you to do
No,
that?
and I'm not making excuses, but it's again speaking from a mother's perspective and from a mother's perspective who has experienced this. Okay, I'm not even going to details of my own personal like shit, but you also, as a mother, you think about how it's going to affect your child as well, because and that is something that you have to take into effect when making decisions like this. Should she have called the cops? Yes. However, I think in the back of her mind too, she wanted to protect her daughter even more because take it from somebody who, as a mother, from a mother who has watched one of her children go through this process. It is not fun. It is not easy. This is something an adult woman struggles to go through. The court process, the testimonies, the telling your story repeatedly to doctors and to therapists and to cops and to, in front of the courtroom.
And you
Not to
still gotta
There's,
mention
look at
that
your
some
accuser in the
people,
face.
not
and so
not to
I'm just,
mention, not to
hold
mention
on.
that some people are afraid to believe in you. That's another factor. That's a
Exactly.
big thing right there.
But and just like as a mother who watched this kind of unravel with one of her own kids, yeah, what happened to her will be something that she will never forget. But having to tell it over and over and over and over again made the anxiety and the depression and the mental health worse. Okay, because it's not just okay. You tell your story one time, you're done. You are constantly every new person you meet, you're retelling your story to, and that does more mental damage to that girl or that woman than anything ever could. And so, I mean, I could see where the mom was coming from. She wanted to protect her daughter even more, but I do think she should have called the cops and then just support and encourage your daughter, and you just make sure you have the things in place that she needs as you go on that journey. But I will say that journey is not easy for an adult, let alone a child.
Can I add on top of that, thinking that, let's say we know already those underage is already ruined, especially emotionally, their body and their sanctuary. On top of that, the families are ruined because they see what's happening to their family members.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
that is a life lasting thing. And and to me, that's both sides of the fence, not counting the goddamn fucking, part of my language, perpetrator side. I don't give a damn. They are below hell. And I'm sure you've seen what I've written. There are four stages of
Yeah,
heaven
I
and
was
hell.
talking to you earlier about it too. And like I said, we all had like very strong emotion about this too. But the thing is, so like I understand from Dan's point of view that he didn't know, like back then they didn't have like background checks and all that stuff that we have now. But he could
Oh,
have
there
known
was
it,
background check. It takes a while. But today we can get background checks within 15 minutes.
and even
Those
less.
days they had to wait 30 days, or depending on how long it takes to get hear back from them. First of all, I remember when applying for a job, when they got background checks, you had to sign a waiver and you had to wait 30 more days because they have to get the information from the police. So background check took a long time back then.
No, they did. Like they're not wrong about that whatsoever. But the reason why, and especially with Brian Pick, this dude is just every ounce of creepy and every ounce of I want to punch this dude in the face so bad.
Can I be completely honest with you though? I don't believe at all like that Dan did not know it. Dan was around both Jason and Brian just as much
So
as he
here's
was
the
around
question for
those
you,
kids.
Hottie. So here's the
There were
question for
three other
you.
perpetrators. There were three other pedophiles besides. Damn well, pedophile refers to people younger
Well,
than
he
11.
himself is
Some of them
one.
did, but they did mess with underage minors that were not legally consenting.
But here's the thing. I wouldn't be surprised if he is one, considering that all of his shows that has some sort of sexual reference to it. It was what I was talking to Nick about earlier.
Yeah, yeah. There is no doubt in my mind there's about Dan we don't know about. But I do not believe at all that he did not know nothing. He knew what was going. He knew what was
Of
going on,
course he knew.
and
Look,
I
look at
mean,
him. Look at him. He put scripted, did have these minors, especially probably younger than 10, depending on how he had actors younger than 10 were doing adult content. But I've watched those shows and seen it. I had never come across. And looking back, oh my God, I wish I had known not to watch those things.
Yeah, that's what I
but
was
you
saying.
also
Also, you also gotta realize too, like we as kids, we didn't see it like that. We saw it as,
Well,
oh,
I
it's
was,
funny,
I
ha
was,
ha
I
ha.
was I was most likely an adult at the time.
well
Yeah,
because that's because us back then. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. Teenagers and younger kids back then were a lot more innocent than teenagers and kids are today. So when we saw something like that on TV, we didn't straight jump to sex because we weren't. There wasn't sex on our screen and sex in our music 24/7, right?
Yeah,
Whereas, like, if if a 12-year-old girl is sitting there watching the new iCarly or something today, and she sees that something like that, she's gonna automatically jump and know what it is. We were innocent back in them days. Kids did not know what a lot of this crap was. So to
And,
them,
and
Ariana Grande pouring water over herself while laying in the bed was not sexual. It was just
yeah,
funny
and also
because that wasn't
squirt,
something we saw.
not only
squirt,
that, like Ariana
and
Grande also had a potato in her hand too. We thought it was hilarious. She
oh
was
yeah,
trying to get juice out
and
of it.
also squirting that yellow stuff, whatever that is, on that face. I seen that. I seen that one on one
Well,
of those
exactly,
episodes,
exactly. But like,
and I'm looking back. If we had known these people were like that, we would have called it right then. I'm sure back in those days, if people knew those things were sexual and seeing it over and over, there had to be somebody on TV had to, and maybe they did call email say, "Hey, I see what you got going on your network, but we're going to get to it about corporates overlooking this mess."
well, yeah, because I mean, like for us as kids back then, like I said, we were more innocent. We didn't see this stuff. Like we would have never known that was sexual if someone didn't tell us. You know what I mean? Um, but
Which
like
is what the documentary
realistically,
pretty much did. They pretty much opened up
yeah.
to all of our eyes, telling, "Hey, this is wrong."
Well, no, like if I would have no, but see, I don't think it took the documentary to open my eyes up. I'm gonna be completely
Well,
honest
for
with you.
me, it did.
Watching that as a kid was different. But if I, as a parent, walked in on one of my kids watching something like that, like what Ariana Grande did on that bed with that water bottle, I would come into the living room and be like, "Oh fuck no, you turn that shit off. This is not kids TV, right?"
Yeah,
And
but as a parent, would you have realized that back in those days? That's the
uh,
question.
yes, if I was a parent when that show first came out, and I seen her on the bed in the early 2000s, would I say yes? You want to know why? Because it is sexual, and that takes me back to the parents. Parents back then must not have known what their kids was watching, or they just didn't care, just like they do today. Because it adults even 20 years ago knew that shit was wrong. Okay, they knew that was sexual. Kids didn't. Adults did. And even the parents on the set, you are literally watching your child record this. You are watching your child be recorded for a TV show doing this shit.
See,
What
here's
is
the
wrong
thing
with
is
you?
about it. I never saw that scene where the girl was kind of almost on the bed, having her head upside down. I never saw that. That's probably a red flag. Everybody
There was
probably would
another one
call an
too.
email. The
Um,
company should have got on that right then and there. But look what happened. 20 years later,
Or
getting
like
the
well,
when
here's
stigma.
the
Jamie,
thing. Dan Schneider was their golden boy. He thought he himself had mentioned it before. He keep freaking denying it, but everybody knows the freaking truth at this point. He keep thinking that he's God. He's not freaking God.
but yeah, but the
Well,
executives let him think
he
he
had,
was God.
he had godlike powers until 20 years later they fucking stripped him down.
Of course, because of everything that freaking happened. Because apparently, according to what everybody was saying, that he had a toxic environment workplace and yada yada yada. But that's not the freaking truth. The truth already came out with this documentary.
You know, I saw one clip, it's just a photo, where a girl was hunched up and he has a fist up. I'm like, how can anybody didn't flag him? And how long ago was that before he was fired?
Who knows at this point? Like, who freaking knows?
The entire time he worked with Philip, he was like that. He always had a woman massaging his back. He always had some.
And what's
There,
hilarious is that he keeps denying that that ever happened. And there's pictures literally in the freaking documentary saying it's just showing that he was literally getting a massage right there. And
I'd have been like, fuck
and
no.
even witnesses has been there to say the same thing that he was getting a massage by the female.
I'd have been like, fuck no, fuck your shit.
You know what surprised me? You know, seeing this documentary up to this point, I'm like, why, especially a father, didn't get a gun and kill Dan and
Wasn't
these
right.
perpetrators? I'm surprised that didn't even happen. I guess they couldn't because Paramount had a security where you couldn't get in. There wasn't any way that they could have done something.
But
But
from what
they would have got Dan in his home. All they got to know is where he lived. They would have killed that sucker.
but from what I noticed from the documentary though, a lot of it seemed to happen on the in the Sunset Studio, Nickelodeon Studio Sunset. So,
Well, it used to be
um,
on the Paramount, but then they I guess bought a building or something, named it a Sunset Nickelodeon Studio.
well, because even Drake had said when he was given his story, like he started and he wasn't on Sunset yet. He was on the other one, and then
Paramount.
when yeah. So I mean, it looks like for the most part, if you were on the other one, you were pretty much safe. But once you hit Sunset, that's where the shit started to happen.
And speaking of Drake, I want to get a little bit into his story too. Like his story is
I
absolutely
I
horrific.
I want to get to there because I was waiting when we get
His
there.
story is absolutely freaking horrific. Just hearing it, you basically just said every single awful thing that you can think of basically happened to him. I wouldn't even wish that on my worst enemy.
See, here's the thing
No.
about Drake. He couldn't get in detail what was happening, but he did say just
The
picture
court
what
document that
that
was shown,
just picture what that would have happened.
well, yeah, but the
And
court document that showed in the documentary pretty much confirmed what Drake had said and what had happened and went down. The only reason why he didn't want to say it because he had no way of putting it lightly.
and it was probably too emotional for him to speak in words. So I think he went short so he doesn't cry on the set. That's probably what he would have ended up doing if he had to say it.
His
But
dad, yeah, like because like I know you want to mention his dad, but I'm gonna bring it up for you. Like
oh, his dad, his
his dad, like
emotional role.
yeah, he was pretty much around. Notice like Brian Peck's behavior, especially around Drake. And just for the record, and I'm throwing this out there, he was also around Leo, aka the Titanic Leo, that Leo, the one that comes
Mr.
to.
DiCaprio,
Yep, the one
the
that
sexiest man on the earth. No.
I was gonna say I don't know what kind of man you be looking at, cause you way beyond
Now
that.
now speaking about Drake's father, he did everything he could. He was there to protect. So what Brian Peck knew exactly what he doing. He went to the mother and played her off, and it helped to separate the fa- the fa- the father and Drake from each other. It hurted him, and he knew something was going on. But then by the time it
He
gets to the
noticed, yeah, cause
we
he
are talking
noticed,
about before, he knew then. He didn't think it was his son until his son told him that, yeah, that was him when the police got involved.
yeah, but like just going backtrack a little bit, on that before we even get to that, is the fact that his dad was like just noticed his behavior, and he was being groomed by Brian Peck, and of course like Brian Peck even convinced him to drop his dad as a manager. It was like, nah, I don't believe this dude is good for you. He's stealing your mommy, hidden, stealing his money, blah blah blah. And of course he decided to get his mom involved. And his mom said, yeah, sure, I'll be his manager, whatever, whatever. And of course his mom is the whole reason why this whole entire thing happened. What the heck is
get talked
Welcome back.
into to leaving, like divorcing. They call it divorcing your parents,
You
and that's
might
actually not
wanna
that's
you
actually not uncommon in Hollywood though for young stars, because even if
Emancipation. They use those kids so they
yeah,
can
you guys
legally
might
divorce their
wanna
parents.
you guys might want to repeat that because some reason my computer decided to crash and it skipped
well,
pretty much
yeah,
everything.
it didn't skip everything. I don't think so because it went offline and then it came back online because I'm watching it on my other screen.
Yeah, because my computer is being stupid. I don't know what the fuck is going on with it.
Well, all the only thing that it didn't pick up was where I just started off at was it's not uncommon for emancipation to take place because of producers and managers grooming the kids because I mean it happened to a lot of kid actors even back in the day. Um, but I mean even with Amanda Bynes, remember like that was one of the things that Dan tried to convince her to do was drop her parents
Yeah,
and
he wanted to get her like what they call it, what how do you say
emancipated.
yes.
But so that he could have more control over her and what she did because she had really strict parents. Like her parents were strict as hell. Um, and when they noticed that things
Hold on, because I think I'm gonna have to restart.
what
That's my
Okay,
cats. They're
I thought your cat was saying something. Okay, we're back. Forgive me
all right
earlier for having a technical difficulty with my computer. I don't know what the hell is going on with it. But anyway,
so
you were saying.
difficult. Okay, so
well.
yeah,
He's back on the air. Okay, carry on.
it's it's not uncommon for emancipation in young actors in Hollywood. But like I was saying, Amanda Bynes, Dan tried to do the same thing with her and her parents because she had really strict fucking parents. Like her parents
Excuse me.
realized something was going on, that they were getting too close. And when her parents spoke up, that's when Dan started trying to groom her into divorcing her parents, is what they call it, and emancipation, so that he could have more control and she could have more freedom
And not
without
only
her strict
that, I believe
parents.
they also mentioned saying that her dad was abusive, quote unquote abusive.
They tried to say that, but her dad was not abusive. Like, come on. That was just the shit that was being put into her head because she actually had parents that cared and loved her and wanted to protect her. And Dan was like, "Yeah, no, we can't have this." Because I mean, yes, Dan was the golden boy of Nickelodeon, but Amanda Bynes at that time was Dan's golden ticket. Without her, he would not be where he was at that moment. You know what I mean? And so the thought of losing her was like, no, if I lose you, if we don't have the Amanda show, if you're not our front girl right now, I'm going to lose everything. So he tried everything in his power. And just seeing the pictures and the videos and the way that he interacted with her, I,
He
I'm going
was
to be
even in
completely
the. I
honest.
think he was even in the bathtub with
Can
her
I
at
back
one
up a little
point.
bit?
But hold on real quick. Let me just finish my thought. It would not shock me at all if there was something inappropriate going on there that we don't know about.
I mean, yeah, you're 100% correct. Unfortunately,
You know, 20 years of what's going on. There's about 10 billion things happen that we are not going to know about.
and we may never know either. But
Yeah.
here's the thing: if you guys are gonna pick up on Nickelodeon, I feel like Disney should be the next one too because the
Disney,
shit that's coming
Paramount,
out.
Hollywood, everybody was doing it. But I'm going to get to that eventually.
I mean, we're gonna break this up regardless. And as we go on, but because I know it's like a very short little stream right now, so it's just summing it up right now. But we're definitely gonna go more into it next week. But as I mentioned before, it's like it's insanity, is what it is. Because everybody has
And I
this picture perfect idea of Hollywood, and then once they're in it, they realize, yeah, this shit is not for me.
yeah, and I think next week my focus is going to be more on Disney because I think yes, you have the sexual stuff going on, but
We're
I
also
also
going to be
think
talking about more about the other cast members that was in it too. It's the thing. It's like I said, it's a very short
yeah,
stream for today.
but I think a lot of it, which I'll probably point on to next week, is also the mental health aspect, because even looking at Nickelodeon, but also at Disney, and the mental health aspect with the long work hours and the stress that was put on these kids. And so it's not just sexual abuse, they were being emotionally abused, mentally abused, their mental health.
and
um
verbally.
and I think, like, doing the research on Disney, um a lot of Disney's problems were in the mental health aspect. There, a lot of Disney stars end up in mental health uh rehab centers, like Demi Lovato.
Yeah, because I
Um,
know Demi. Actually, I believe she shared like I think she was on a podcast before with, and she mentioned that she was being extremely overworked.
well, and here's the thing: like, she went to them and she said, "Look, I need a break. Mentally, I'm not okay." And they told her, "Well, go see the doctor, get on some Prozac, and you'll be all right." Um, First of all, she was 15 when this happened. Like, oh, just go see the doctor, get on some Prozac. Like, no, no, that's not what you tell a 15-year-old who just comes to you and tells you mentally and emotionally they're not okay. You give them that break that they need. You help them get the support and encouragement and help that they need. And I do 100% blame the people who were on the set for her Sunny with a Chance show for her mental breakdown. When she went to them at 15, they should have gave her the support and encouragement and the help that she needed, and not simply told her to go get on some Prozac and
Also, the
call it a day.
parents should have solved that problem. If you got a child at 15 years old having that much problem, that should have been say, wait a minute, take them out of the environment, tell the producer, I've got to get my child into treatment and do
Well,
this and that. And that,
her mom did. That's why they ended the show Sunny with a Chance, because her mom pulled her from it and put her in rehab.
okay.
I think she was
All right.
put in rehab twice. I think.
And then when she had her mental breakdown later, yeah, she was back in rehab. Well, that was more for drugs. The first time when her mom pulled her, and uh, between that, because it was right after Sunny with a Chance. Sunny with a Chance ended. Her mom put her in rehab, and then she came back like a year or so later, at like 16 and a half, almost 17, and did the Camp Rocks or whatever, the Camp Rock movies.
Yeah,
Um,
with the
but
Jonas
yeah,
brother.
yeah, but there was like a break in there where her mom took her out and she was in treatment for her mental health, and then the second one was for drugs. But
If you sit there and say, when you went back into the movie environment or TV show environment, and you're going through that again, that that's a quick way to get relapse.
there was also the other one. What was her name? She was in the Camp Rock movies too, but she also, you guys remember on Disney they did used to do that little short thing that, like, Mike super short show with Mike and his sister Allie.
Yeah, I kind of
I
remember
may
that.
have seen that. I'm
Yeah,
sure I've
okay.
seen it. I used
So
to
that's
watch those and I was young. I used to
so that
watch those,
yeah. But
and
that
that
girl
show was
Allie,
long done.
but
But
that
they
girl
had,
Al that girl Allison though, she was in Camp Rock, and she was in a Missy Elliott video, Work It. I don't know if y'all know that. But anyways, um she's another one though. Like, she went through mental health issues because of being overworked and, like, all that. She went ended up becoming dealing with anorexia, and
I know
all
she
that
was
stuff,
dealing
like
with a
her,
lot of crazy stuff.
mentally and emotionally. And
just to
what
get
But going
back
back,
on,
but going back a little bit on like the documentary, especially under Brian Peck, and I know I talked to you earlier, and I know I talked to you about it too, Rich, was the fact that he was pen pal with none other than who? John Wayne Gacy. If you don't know who John Wayne Gacy is, he's basically a serial killer, pretty much. And what he did was
yeah.
extremely horrendous. It's like we'll talk about him when the time comes up, but
You
he was
Yeah.
bad as can go.
just
Yeah.
just a quick little reflection. That, when Nickelodeon started, I don't know how Dan got into it and how soon, whether he was there at first when Nickelodeon
I
started,
believe he's.
but
I can
he
tell you right
he
now.
was he was dealing with younger children, younger than 10, and he was doing that stuff too. And then as they got older, but here's the thing I go to, and I'm thinking right now, how perpetrators would take children and they become teenagers, they groom them, and when they get old enough, they do away with them. Dan
Okay.
had
To
to
answer your
get rid
question,
of some of these kids because they got too old for the play.
yeah, and to answer your question about when he started, Dan Snyder actually started in 1994.
So was
And
all that all
when the Nickelodeon started.
before that?
That's a good
Um,
question. I'm about to look at that too.
but his first show was all that, right? They hired him to come in and do all that.
I believe, yeah, because if they mention all that, then yes, he did. Yes, it started
Yeah,
in April 16, 1994. So yes,
and that was with all that was
that
their first like,
that
yeah,
was their first season and all that random stuff that been going on. Cause
yeah.
if you remember, there was a scene, there was a scene in there called Pickle Boy, which is Brian Peck,
Oh God,
and
Yeah,
so that's basically where
I
it
got
all
no
started.
comment on that disgusting stuff.
Well, you can go ahead and say it right
yeah.
now.
I'm to be completely.
I'm gonna
I'm
be blunt. That was, and I know it from me being bisexually gay. I know this type of term. That was a glory hole view. I hate to say it, but that's exactly what uh that perspective on that, because that's what gay people did in restroom. And why did they do that with young people? Oh, or they show
but
it where young people see that shit.
yeah, but see, I do want to point out one because I think what this documentary is going to do is it's going to make people go back and look like watch all that and things like that, and they're going to find every little thing that they can point to and say, "Oh, look at that," and "Oh, look at that," and I'm going to play devil's advocate here and just be the one that says not everything in those shows was like that. Okay, there was some actual innocent, funny shit going on in those shows as well. And so, yes, do we want to point out the inappropriateness? Yes, but can we also not undermine the work that those actors and actresses did on those shows because they were some damn good child actors? Okay, I'm just putting that out there, and not everything that they did on those shows was sexualized. There was some innocent kid stuff in there too that I
You know,
think we need to
normalized stuff.
exactly because I'm gonna be on. Even when it comes to Pickle Boy, not everything that Pickle Boy did was perverted, like putting the pickle through the hole when what's his name was okay. Some of the
Pedro
pickle
Pablo.
Yeah, some of the Pickle Boy shit was actually hilarious as hell. Okay. Yes, it was Brian Peck, and you look at that now and you're like, ooh, why the fuck is he the Pickle Boy? But like, I just want to make that clear. Not everything in those shows was dirty like that. And so, I mean, don't go nitpicking at every little thing that was in those shows because it's not all dirty. And they were some damn good child actors. Okay. Like,
Yeah, they were. Like some of them, like most of them even didn't even realize what was happening either.
no, no. And I think some of them, realistically, some of them didn't have because some of them didn't have the experiences. And it's not to undermine those like Drake who did have those bad experiences, but I think it's also important to realize people had other experiences that weren't in the
As
lines
bad.
of sexual being sexualized and sexually abused. Because even like on all that, the one girl, she her experience was more of a racism experience, and she was never sexually or emotionally abused, but some racial comments and things were made to her, and like, and even the one black boy, like he was some of the things he was made to do on all that
Oh,
were
I saw
racially stereotypical
and I saw the costume. I got no comment on that. That's
eh,
disgusting.
exactly. So I'm just saying, like, it wasn't they all had their own experiences, but then some of them didn't have experiences with the racism, the sexism, or the
Simba,
abuse. Because even
Simba,
like
no.
I know how
what,
whenever you're talking, his dad
right?
is
He's
screaming
about
at
to
his
do
dad.
something he shouldn't be doing, so he
I'm
stopped.
like,
So
I,
anyway,
I,
my
Do you know how
apologies.
serious
Carry
he
I'm
on.
is
like,
now?
hold on. I'm like, okay, like we're talking about Nickelodeon right now. He's talking about the Lion King. Like, no, stop. We're not on Disney. Okay, anyways, um, but no, because like even like Kel Mitchell, who played Kel on Kenan and Kel and all that. Like he's even come out and he said like he didn't experience any of that and he didn't realize or recognize that any of that was going on because that wasn't an experience that he had. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And so I think a lot of it is like, yeah, you had some of them had to deal with racism. Some of them had to do with the emotional and mental abuse. Some of them had to do with the sexual abuse. But they all had their own story and their own experiences. And then some of them didn't have any of it, and they were lucky and blessed not to have any of it. Um, so
Yeah,
I
but
do.
you had to hear about that. Those actors were your friends. You ought to know. Wait a minute, what the hell is going on? They ought to be seeing that too, even though they may not be victimized, but they were friends of victimized. If you get what I'm saying.
But they were also still children, Rick. So it's
Yeah,
like,
I
yeah,
know, I know, I know.
you can't expect a child to stand up for another because like they probably at the same time didn't know that what was going on and those sexual scenes. They probably at the same time didn't know what was behind, you know. And that's when the adults had to step in, like the moms and the dads and the whoever's, like they needed
You,
to step in because those other kids on the set, they probably were just as innocent as the ones doing the scenes. Like they're not going to be the one to step up and be like, "Hey, this is kind of sexual." Like they probably didn't think of it that way.
they probably
They're
thought it was
kids.
yeah,
hilarious playing
take
for.
a look what Dan was doing. He was doing it to those young ones that had no idea what they were doing. And he knew what they were doing. He knew what they were doing on his terms.
Well, yeah, he was an
Cause since
asshole
you
with an
mentioned,
ego.
yeah, cause since you mentioned earlier about all of that before Rick came out with the Lion King, and
Simba.
but it's funny because my cat is also named Simba too, which is hysterical. But that's not the point. But anyway, it's like going back to like the Drake thing. It's like I know I told it to you earlier too when we were talking about it, but I was seeing like again going back to TikTok, like I was seeing a lot of people going on Josh's TikTok account and going, "Oh, like why don't you talk about Quiet on Tape? Why don't you talk about this? And why don't you talk about Drake? Why don't you talk about blah blah blah?" And he was blocking everybody. And look at that, I'm not defending the guy. I don't know the guy whatsoever, but I feel like he may have not experienced what Drake has experienced, but it could be possible that he might have some sort of trauma that he does not want to talk about. Same thing with Amanda Bynes. Everybody's like, "Oh, I want to hear what Amanda Bynes has to say. I want to hear what Amanda has to say." She did reach out and spoke about it. Actually, so to say, she spoke about it on Twitter, which is now X, but still everybody calls it Twitter, where she use a secret account under Ashley Banks. And she was literally saying, "Help me, this, and that." She was literally telling all of her story. And of course, everybody just brushed her off saying, "Oh, she's just crazy." And they put her in a mental hospital. Like, really?
You see, that's exactly what happened in the entertainment industry. They brush everything off.
They brushed her
That's
under
what
the table. It's like,
that's what happened to Britney Spears, man. Everybody thought she was fucking crazy. Everybody, like, they missed everything that happened to her. They missed all the behind the scenes shit. And when she started talking, now I mentioned her because she started when she was young too. She was only 15 when she made her first album. Okay, and we all know now, since she went through the public court and everything, with her parent, with her dad, um, when she first went crazy and shaved her head, and they threw her into a mental home, and she wasn't fucking crazy. She wasn't crazy. That was a cry for help. That was a yo. This is what's happening to me behind the scenes. This is what my life
She,
really looks
she
like when
was
I'm not on
emotionally
stage.
burnt out. She
And
was
it's just
emotionally
like,
burnt
well,
out.
it
Not
wasn't
only
just
that,
emotionally burnt out.
Britney Spears herself went on a set with her sister and literally yelled. I don't know if it was at a studio producer or somebody, but I know she was literally right there and yelled at the person because she knew what was going on. She herself was a child at her sister's age too. Like, what do you expect?
But I mean, I also think with Jamie, with Jamie Lynn Spears, though, I mean, they're both of them, like, their parents were just straight fucking. I can't even I don't even have a word to describe their parents. Okay, um, but I mean, you look back and like back in those days, like when it first happened, when she first had her mental breakdown, you look back and we were probably all saying, "Oh my God, Brittany's crazy. What the hell happened to her? What's wrong with her?" But then knowing what we know now, her dad was drugging her. Her dad was like, it's just like, what in the fuck? Like, we were so judgmental when we didn't know the whole story. And then you look back and you find out her dad was drugging her, her dad was robbing her. Like, it's a mess. Jamie Lynn got pregnant at 15, which is why they actually had to end Zoe 101 because Jamie Lynn was 15 and pregnant, and their Nickelodeon's like, yeah, no, we're not going to have you pregnant on a kid show. Um, which is kind of ironic given everything we know about the kid shows now. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's just like their whole like Jamie and Brittany's whole that whole thing was dynamic was just so fucked up for them.
You
But
know, seeing what happened to those people, I'm going through the flash of my mind, like Family Ties, Ricky Schroeder with Silver Spoon, and these other young actors. How many of them were victimized that we don't even know about?
You
yeah,
can go back even further backward. Shirley Temple and Judy Garland. I think I'm saying her name right.
y- yeah,
Judy Garland goes way back, yes.
Yeah, like I said, you can go way back with those two, because those two were also
yeah,
victimized.
I would like
yeah.
to speak when we're going back in history. I'd like to make a point that my mind kept going over and over this. Uh, and I'm hoping I'm not off the topic. You know, I'm looking at how we
I
see
mean,
the
we've been off the topic ever since scream Simba.
okay, the Roman Colosseum where people did acting and all that.
Oh no, Moses,
I
we're not going that further back.
and yeah, these things were going on for years and years, acting years and years, and these people had to be abused. This is the reason why the industry kept overlooking. This is the reason why we're where we are today because they kept that same practice overlooked. Never mind that
I don't
they
think
kept
we
it
actually
going.
I don't
I
think we
don't.
actually went off track at all because we're still talking about child
Yeah, but he's talking
when
about
they're
freaking Roman and freaking Colosseums. Like we're not
but
Moses. We're not in
but
BC.
but I do think it's been happening for a while in um
It's been going on for thousands of years in acting. But right now, we have a technology where a lot of things are happening. And right now, as technologies got better, we started learning a lot more. And we
but
started, and it's all, how do you put it? It's all
It's all
a
right there,
bombshell
wide in
on
the
us.
open.
It's a bombshell that we're learning.
But I'm gonna be completely honest with you, and then we do have to kind of dwindle down this week.
Yeah.
But I just want to end with this on the topic. I do find it, and I'll touch more on this next week too. But I do find it ironic that we're talking. There's a documentary out, and we're talking about how children's shows back then on Nickelodeon were sexualized, and they snuck this sexual stuff into these shows, and but y'all do realize that's 90% of children's TV today, right? And no one's batting an eye at what these kids are watching today.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really surprising either whatsoever. But like I said before, and I'm gonna keep mentioning it. If people are calling out Nickelodeon, thanks to, like I said, we can expand this more into next week. You should auto call out Disney and Paramount and anyone else who also had child actors in them.
Yeah, and we definitely will. But I mean, like, have y'all ever seen the movie Turning Red? The Disney movie Turning Red.
Uh,
You have to text it out. I'm sorry.
It's called Turning Red. It's about the girl who gets excited and turns into a panda.
I think I think I've seen it. Oh, I think I've seen the
I,
trailer of it.
and I'm not
If I
exaggerating.
have, I don't remember it. If I have
Okay,
seen it, I don't remember it. And
okay.
one thing,
Well, hold
go
on,
ahead.
real quick. Let me finish my thought. And I'm not over exaggerating when I say the word excited either.
That's hilarious.
Um, she gets excited and she turns into a panda. And if you haven't seen that movie, you don't have to watch the whole movie, but Google some clips on that movie for us to talk about next week when we dig in a little bit deeper next week. Because I'm gonna tell you, we're sitting here talking about the sexualization that was in all that and Sam and Cat and iCarly and all that crap. That's a newer movie. That movie came out like a year or two ago, Turning Red. The scenes in that movie that is made for children. Okay, like no, there is literally a scene in that movie where the girl is like having like a sex dream. Okay, like no, I find it ironic that we're talking about what was snuck into kids shows 20 years ago when that shit is clearly in TV shows and movies targeted for kids
And nowadays,
today.
it's funny how we're talking about all of this stuff with the documentary, and we didn't even mention Jeffrey Epstein, not even once, because he's another one.
Exactly, but I mean, I'm gonna touch more on what we're seeing today and today's kid stuff. Like we want to talk about what was stuck in like 20 years ago. Y'all need to see what's actually happening in today's. I'm gonna have some clips for y'all next week. I'm so excited.
um, yeah,
Just
like I said, we're gonna expand this even more. If you're gonna be going back and forth between Quiet on Set, which is Nickelodeon, we're also gonna be going back and forth between Disney and all of this stuff. We're gonna go back and forth next week.
Yeah, yeah,
all right. Okay. What about are we going to talk about Drake
Yeah, we're gonna
uh
expand on
having
that
the
a little
case
more
going
next week too.
going into court? Are we going to talk about that,
Yeah, we're
or are
gonna
we
talk
going to
about
talk
yeah,
that.
about
Yeah, we're
that
gonna talk
later?
about that next week. But the thing is, though, Nick gotta go like literally right now, so we're gonna cut this
yeah.
short. So we're gonna cut this short. But however, like I said, next week we're definitely gonna be coming
All right,
back.
here's my closing. Here's my closing thought. Are you ready? Here's my closing thought.
Sure.
Parent Parents gotta do better. Adults gotta do
I should
better.
have seen this coming. I should have seen this
No,
coming.
not I always end with parents, but no, parents gotta do better. But so do adults because there was a lot of adults in that situation in those studios with those kids with that should have spoke up and they didn't. And everybody who stayed silent, every adult who stayed silent and did not open up failed those kids.
They are just as guilty.
Yep,
Yes, they all failed them.
100%. Yeah, I definitely agree. Alright, but yes, next week we're gonna be spending more on this and more on the court and everything else. I know Nick, you gotta go, so no, you do.